When did you discover your fiancé had a different name? The wedding invitation fell from Michael's jacket pocket like a confession written in elegant script. I picked it up from our bedroom floor, expecting to see our names embossed in gold lettering, Sarah Chen and Michael Davidson, June 15th. Instead, I stared at completely different words that made my stomach drop through the floorboards. David and Jennifer Morrison cordially invite you to celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary. 5th wedding anniversary. My hands shook as I read the date. It was from last month. The address was in Portland, Oregon, nearly 800 miles from our apartment in Sacramento. The man I'd been engaged to for 8 months, the man I'd been living with for 2 years, apparently had a wife named Jennifer who was throwing him anniversary parties while I was picking out centerpieces for our reception. I sat on our unmade bed, though now I wondered if Jennifer had the same IKEA sheets in Portland, and tried to process what I was holding. The invitation was real. Heavy cardstock, professional printing, even had one of those fancy wax seals. This wasn't some joke or misunderstanding. Michael was in the shower, humming that stupid song he always hummed when he was particularly happy. Yesterday he'd been excited because his promotion came through at a consulting firm, which meant a $15,000 bonus that would really help with the honeymoon expenses. I'd been so proud of him, even called my mom to brag about how well his career was going. Now I was wondering if there even was a consulting firm. My phone buzzed. A text from my wedding planner, final headcount needed by Friday. Still 78 guests, 78 people were coming to watch me marry a man whose real name I apparently didn't know. My parents had flown in from Vancouver last weekend to meet his family, who conveniently couldn't make it due to a flu outbreak back in Ohio. We'd all laughed about the bad timing. Now I realized there probably wasn't any family in Ohio. The shower turned off. I had maybe 3 minutes before Michael, or David, or whoever the hell he was, came out wrapped in a towel, asking what I wanted for dinner like this was just another normal Thursday evening. I shoved the invitation into my purse and tried to arrange my face into something that wouldn't give me away. My mind was racing through every conversation we'd ever had, every story he'd told me about his childhood, his college roommates, his ex-girlfriends. Had any of it been real? The bathroom door opened and he emerged exactly as I predicted, navy blue towel around his waist, hair dripping, that easy smile that had made me fall in love with him at Jesse's housewarming party 2 years ago. "Hey beautiful," he said, kissing my forehead. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I almost laughed at how accurate that was. I had seen a ghost, the ghost of his real life, haunting our fake one. "Just wedding stress," I managed. "You know how it is." He nodded sympathetically, like he understood the pressure of planning a wedding when he'd apparently already had one 5 years ago. "Only 3 weeks left, then we'll be on that beach in Maui with nothing to worry about except whether to order more piña coladas." The Maui honeymoon. All-inclusive resort, $8,000 package that I paid for because his bonus wouldn't clear until after we got back. Money that would be very convenient for someone planning to disappear. I waited until he left for work the next morning before I started digging. He kissed me goodbye at 7:30 a.m. sharp, briefcase in hand, telling me he had back-to-back client meetings and would probably be late. Just like every other day for the past 2 years. The moment his Honda Civic disappeared around the corner, I was at his laptop. Password protected, obviously, but Michael had always been creatures of habit. I tried his birthday, the one he told me, anyway, and got nowhere. Then I tried mine. Nothing. On a whim, I typed Jennifer and the screen unlocked immediately. My heart hammered as I scrolled through his email. The account name was david.morrison.pdx@gmail.com, mailtone david.morrison.pdx@gmail.com. Not Michael Davidson, marketing consultant. David Morrison, and judging by his inbox, he worked part-time at an auto parts store in Portland and lived at 1247 Maple Street with someone who sent him email signed Love Always, Jen. I clicked on the most recent email from her, dated 3 days ago. Babe, picked up your dry cleaning, it's hanging in the closet. Mom wants to know if you can make it to Sunday dinner this week. Also the mortgage payment bounced again, can you transfer some money from the business account? Love you, Business account. My chest tightened as I kept reading. There were dozens of emails between David and Jennifer about finances, and they painted a clear picture. Jennifer thought her husband was running some kind of consulting business that required frequent travel to California. She had no idea he was living a double life with a second fiancé. But the worst part was how normal their emails were. Grocery lists. Reminders about dentist appointments. Photos of their cat, Mr. Whiskers. Jennifer Morrison wasn't some villainous co-conspirator, she was just another woman who thought she was married to someone she loved. I found their wedding photos buried in a folder marked Tax Documents 2018. Jennifer was beautiful in that girl next door way, with auburn hair and freckles, wearing a simple white dress in what looked like someone's backyard. David, my Michael, looked exactly the same, just with shorter hair. The same smile he'd given me when I said yes to his proposal at Point Reyes 8 months ago. My phone rang, making me jump. Michael's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," I answered, surprised by how normal my voice sounded. "Quick question," he said, and I could hear traffic in the background. "My bank called about some unusual activity on my account. Did you happen to use my debit card for anything yesterday?" I hadn't touched his card in weeks. "No, why?" "Weird. They said there was a charge in Portland. Probably just a mistake." He paused. "Hey, I was thinking, maybe we should consolidate our accounts before the wedding? Make everything easier for the honeymoon?" There it was. He wanted access to my savings account, the one with $23,000 I'd been building up since college. Money he could clean out from a beach in Maui while I was left with nothing but a fraudulent marriage certificate. "That's a great idea," I lied smoothly. "Let's talk about it tonight." "Perfect. Love you, babe." "Love you too." But as I hung up and stared at the wedding photos of David and Jennifer Morrison on his laptop screen, I realized I didn't even know who I'd been saying those words to. I spent the next hour creating a fake Facebook profile, Jennifer Chen, complete with a stock photo of an Asian woman in sunglasses and a generic bio about loving travel and coffee. It took me 3 tries to find Jennifer Morrison in Portland, but there she was, 32 years old, works as a pediatric nurse at OHSU, married to David Morrison since 2018. Her profile was public, filled with photos of their life together. Photos that made my blood run cold. There was David, my Michael, at what looked like a 4th of July barbecue last year, arm wrapped around Jennifer's waist. Another from Christmas morning, both of them in matching pajamas opening presents under a tree. One from just 2 weeks ago at some brewery, Jennifer kissing his cheek while he grinned at the camera. He'd been living this double life so seamlessly that he was posting anniversary dinner photos on the same weekend he'd taken me ring shopping to upgrade my engagement ring. I scrolled through 5 years of their relationship documented in social media posts. David Morrison, auto parts store employee who'd met Jennifer at a community college class in 2017. David Morrison, who'd proposed to Jennifer at Multnomah Falls in 2018. David Morrison, who'd apparently told his wife he was building a consulting business that required frequent travel to Northern California for client meetings. The consulting business was me. I was his business. My hands were shaking as I opened a new message window. I stared at the blank screen for 10 minutes, trying to figure out how to destroy someone's life with a Facebook message. Finally, I typed. Asterisk hi Jennifer, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think we need to talk about David. Are you available for a phone call today? Asterisk. I hit send before I could lose my nerve, then immediately wanted to throw my laptop across the room. What was I doing? What was I going to say? Hi, I'm your husband's other fiancé, surprise. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later with a message from an unknown Oregon number. Asterisk, this is Jennifer Morrison. Who is this, and how did you get my number? Asterisk. I'd included my phone number in the Facebook message. Smart thinking, past Sarah. Asterisk, my name is Sarah Chin. I live in Sacramento and I think your husband has been lying to both of us. Asterisk. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, what kind of lies? I took a screenshot of our engagement photo from my Instagram and sent it to her. He told me his name is Michael Davidson and we're supposed to get married in 3 weeks. The 3 dots disappeared for a long time. When her response finally came through, it was just one word, fuck. Then my phone rang. Is this Sarah? Her voice was shaky but controlled, like someone trying very hard not to cry. Yes. Jennifer? How long? She asked without preamble. 2 years. We've been engaged for 8 months. How long has he been, traveling for business? 2.5 years. She let out a bitter laugh. Jesus Christ. I helped him buy his first business suit for those client meetings. I was so proud of him for building something. We sat in silence for a moment, both processing the scope of David's deception. I have his laptop open right now, I said. I can see emails between you two about mortgage payments and Sunday dinners. Jennifer, he's been stealing from both of us. He's trying to get access to my bank accounts before the wedding. The mortgage payments, she whispered. He said business was slow some months, that's why I had to cover everything. But if he's been living with you, he doesn't pay rent here. I've been covering our expenses because his consulting income is inconsistent. That son of a bitch. Her voice was getting stronger, anger replacing shock. Sarah, what are we going to do? For the first time since finding that invitation, I smiled. I have an idea. I explained my plan to Jennifer in detail, and by the end of our 2-hour phone call, we'd gone from strangers to co-conspirators. She was flying down to Sacramento on Friday, 3 days before my wedding, under the pretense of visiting her sick aunt in Stockton. David would never know she was in California. I can't believe I'm doing this, Jennifer said for the 3rd time. I should just divorce him quietly and move on with my life. He's stolen thousands of dollars from both of us, I reminded her. And he was planning to clean out my accounts and disappear after the honeymoon. He deserves whatever's coming. After we hung up, I felt oddly calm for the first time in 48 hours. Having a plan helped, but more than that, I wasn't alone anymore. Jennifer and I were in this together. The hard part was acting normal around Michael for the next 3 days. He came home that evening with Thai takeout and a bottle of wine, chattering about his meetings while I nodded and smiled. Every word out of his mouth felt like nails on a chalkboard. Oh, I have some good news, he said, twirling pad Thai around his fork. That big client I've been courting finally signed. The contract should bring in about $30,000 over the next 6 months. I nearly choked on my spring roll. Wow, that's amazing. Which client? He didn't miss a beat. Patterson Industries. Manufacturing company based in Fresno. Boring stuff, supply chain optimization, but they pay well. The lie rolled off his tongue so smoothly I almost admired his skill. Almost. Maybe we should celebrate, I suggested. Invite some friends over this weekend? Actually, I need to fly up to Portland on Friday for a site visit. Last minute thing, but the money's too good to pass up. I'll be back Saturday afternoon, plenty of time for the rehearsal dinner. Perfect. He'd given me the ideal cover story for why he wouldn't be around when Jennifer arrived. Portland? That's random. Patterson has a satellite office up there. I know, weird timing with the wedding so close, but after the honeymoon I want to focus entirely on you. No work distractions. No work distractions because he'd be long gone with my money, probably on a beach somewhere laughing about the 2 stupid women he'd conned. I excused myself to use the bathroom and texted Jennifer, asterisk he's going to Portland Friday. Says it's for work. You might want to stay with a friend that night, asterisk. Her response came back immediately, asterisk already planned on it. My sister lives in Beaverton, asterisk. Thursday morning brought a new complication. My maid of honor, Rebecca, showed up at my apartment with coffee and a suspicious expression. Okay, what's wrong? She demanded, settling onto my couch. You've been weird all week. Are you having cold feet? Rebecca had been my best friend since college. She knew me well enough to sense when I was falling apart, even when I thought I was hiding it perfectly. Just normal pre-wedding stress, I said, but she wasn't buying it. Sarah. You organized our entire senior year spring break trip in 2 days. You don't get stressed about logistics. She studied my face. This is something else. Did Michael do something? I wanted to tell her everything, but I couldn't risk word getting back to him before Saturday. Rebecca was trustworthy, but she was also dating Michael's groomsman Jake, and pillow talk had ruined smaller secrets than this one. I promise I'll explain everything after the wedding, I said. Just, trust me, okay? And maybe don't mention this conversation to Jake. She frowned but nodded. If you need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. Even if it's 3 a.m. After she left, I spent the day making final preparations. I called the wedding venue and added one more guest to the seating chart, Jennifer Morrison, who would be sitting in the front row on the bride's side, right next to my parents. I wanted to make sure Michael got a good look at her when he turned around. The wedding planner, Sandra, seemed confused by the last-minute addition but was too professional to ask questions. Should I prepare a special meal preference for Ms. Morrison? She asked. No, I said, imagining Jennifer's appetite would probably disappear once the fireworks started. I don't think she'll be staying for dinner. Friday morning arrived with Michael packing his overnight bag for his business trip to Portland. I watched him fold the same blue button-down shirt I'd seen in Jennifer's Facebook photos from their anniversary dinner last month. I hate leaving you so close to the wedding, he said, kissing my forehead. But this Patterson deal could set us up really well for our future. Our future. The words made my skin crawl. It's fine, I managed. I have plenty to keep me busy. Final dress fitting, picking up the flowers, all that bride stuff. He left at 10 a.m., and Jennifer's flight landed at 2:30 p.m. I picked her up at Sacramento International, holding a sign with her name like some twisted airport pickup. We recognized each other immediately despite never having met. We both looked like women who discovered their lives were built on lies. Jennifer was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 5 feet 4 inches with tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She dressed carefully for travel, like she was going to a job interview instead of confronting her husband's double life. This is so surreal, she said as we drove toward my apartment. 2 days ago my biggest problem was whether to plant tomatoes or peppers in the garden. How are you holding up? I asked. Honestly? I keep waiting to wake up. David's been my husband for 5 years. We have a mortgage together, a shared checking account, we're trying to start a family. Her voice cracked. I've been taking fertility medications for 6 months. He was so excited about having kids. My chest tightened. Michael had told me he wanted to wait a few years before starting a family, said he wanted to get his business more established first. Now I wondered if he was stalling because he already had a wife trying to get pregnant. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. This is horrible for both of us, but what he's done to you is worse. You actually married him. What gets me is how good he is at it, Jennifer continued. The lies come so naturally. He remembers details, asks follow-up questions about my work, my friends. He's not just pretending to care, he seems like he actually does care. I've been thinking the same thing. Michael's affection felt genuine. The way he brought me coffee every morning, how he listened when I complained about difficult clients, his enthusiasm when I got promoted last year, none of it seemed fake when it was happening. Maybe he does care, I said. Maybe that's what makes him so dangerous. At my apartment, I showed Jennifer everything I'd found on his laptop. She sat at my kitchen table scrolling through David Morrison's emails while I made tea neither of us would drink. Oh God, she whispered. Look at this. She found an email thread between David and someone named Marcus, dated from 3 months ago. The subject line was California situation update. Asterisk Marcus, things are moving faster than expected. The wedding is June 15th, honeymoon in Maui June 16th to 23rd. Sarah has about $25K in savings plus whatever we'll get from wedding gifts. Should be enough to disappear clean. Jen still doesn't suspect anything, she thinks business is just picking up asterisk. Asterisk David, stick to the timeline. Clean out the accounts on day 2 of the honeymoon, then ghost. I'll have your new documents ready by July 1st, wire the first payment to the usual account asterisk. My hand shook as I read over Jennifer's shoulder. He's done this before. Marcus is his cousin, Jennifer said quietly. I've met him at family gatherings. He works in. I don't know, something with computers. Identity fraud, apparently. This wasn't Michael's first con, it was just his most elaborate one. I wondered how many other women there had been, how many other lives he'd destroyed. Jennifer, I said, we need to call the police. She shook her head. Not yet. I want to see his face tomorrow when his two worlds collide. After that, we can destroy him properly. I looked at her with new respect. Underneath that quiet nurse exterior was someone with steel in her spine. We spent the evening rehearsing what would happen. Jennifer would arrive at the ceremony 5 minutes before it started, take her seat in the front row. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, she'd stand up and introduce herself as Mrs. David Morrison. What do you think he'll do? Jennifer asked. I pictured Michael's face when he saw her, imagined his carefully constructed world crashing down in front of 78 wedding guests. I think he'll run, I said. But he won't get far. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzle-soaked, which felt appropriate for what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Jennifer had spent the night at a hotel downtown. We'd agreed it was too risky for her to stay at my apartment in case Michael came back early from his fake Portland trip. At 9 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from him, asterisk flight delayed but should be back by noon. Can't wait to see you walk down that aisle, beautiful asterisk. I screenshot it and sent it to Jennifer with a message, he's still playing the part. Her response came back immediately, asterisk David's car isn't in our driveway. Neighbor says he saw him leave Thursday night with a suitcase. He never came home, asterisk. So he really had been somewhere for 2 days, just not Portland on business. I wondered if he had a third woman stashed somewhere, or if he'd been holed up in some motel planning his escape route from California. The morning flew by in a blur of hair, makeup, and bridesmaids fussing over dress bustles. My mom kept commenting on how calm I seemed for a bride, how together I had everything. If only she knew I was calm because I'd moved past panic into something colder and more focused. Rebecca cornered me while the makeup artist was touching up my lipstick. Sarah, last chance. You've been acting strange all week and now you look like you're going to a funeral instead of your wedding. What is going on? I met her eyes in the mirror. I promise you'll understand everything in about 3 hours. Just, be ready for anything, okay? She frowned but nodded. Should I be worried about you? No, I said, and realized I meant it. You should probably be worried about Michael. At 1:30 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown Sacramento number. Sarah? It's Jennifer. I'm in the hotel lobby getting ready to leave, but I need to tell you something. Her voice was tight. I just got a call from David. He knows I'm here. My blood went cold. What do you mean he knows? He called my cell 20 minutes ago, said he was at the Sacramento airport and Jennifer Morrison had been paged for a pickup at baggage claim. He heard it over the intercom. She paused. Sarah, he sounded panicked. He kept asking why I was in California, if I'd talked to anyone, what I knew. This was falling apart. If Michael knew Jennifer was in town, he'd never show up to the wedding. He'd disappear and we'd lose our chance at public justice. What did you tell him? I lied. Told him my Aunt Carol in Stockton had a heart attack and I flew down last night to be with family. Said I had no idea he was in California too, what a crazy coincidence. Did he buy it? I think so. He said he'd try to drive up to Stockton after your wedding to see me, bring flowers for Aunt Carol. Jennifer's laugh was bitter. He's still lying even when he's caught. Wants to manage both situations. My mind raced. This could actually work in our favor. Michael would come to the wedding thinking he'd successfully contained the Jennifer problem. He'd be confident, relaxed, unsuspecting. Jennifer, this is perfect. He thinks he's safe. Come to the ceremony as planned. Are you sure? What if he sees me and bolts? He won't. His car will be with the valet, he'll be at the altar with 78 people watching. He can't run without making a scene, and making scenes isn't his style. He's a manipulator, not a confronter. After we hung up, I had 90 minutes to hold myself together through photos and final preparations. My dad kept trying to give me father of the bride pep talks about marriage and partnership, which felt like knives twisting in my chest. Michael's a good man, sweetheart, he said while we posed for pictures outside the bridal suite. Stable, hardworking, clearly adores you. Your mom and I couldn't be happier. I smiled and nodded, knowing that in 2 hours my parents would discover their daughter had nearly married a con artist who'd been planning to steal her life savings. At 3:45 p.m., Sandra the wedding planner knocked on the door. Sarah, we have a small situation. Your groom would like to see you before the ceremony. My heart hammered. See me? That's bad luck. That's what I told him, but he's quite insistent. Says he has something important to give you before you walk down the aisle. This wasn't part of any plan we'd made. Michael wanting to see me could mean anything, maybe he suspected more than Jennifer thought, maybe he'd figured out I knew something. Tell him I'm sticking to tradition, I said firmly. He'll see me when I walk down that aisle. Sandra nodded and disappeared. 5 minutes later she was back. He asked me to give you this. She handed me a small wrapped box. Said it was a last-minute surprise. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet with a small infinity symbol charm. The card read, asterisk for my beautiful wife, because our love is endless. Thank you for making me the luckiest man alive. M asterisk. I stared at it, wondering if he'd given Jennifer similar jewelry over the years, if this was part of his standard romantic playbook or something he'd actually chosen specifically for me. It's beautiful, my mom said, fastening it around my wrist. He has wonderful taste. The bracelet felt like a shackle. At 4:55 p.m., I lined up behind the venue doors with my father, bouquet trembling in my hands. Through the glass, I could see the seated guests, Michael waiting at the altar in his navy suit, the officiant checking his notes. And there in the front row, exactly where I'd planned, sat Jennifer Morrison in a simple black dress, her auburn hair twisted into a neat bun. She looked like any other wedding guest, except for the way she was staring at her husband with the intensity of someone memorizing a face for a police lineup. Michael hadn't seen her yet. He was facing forward, occasionally glancing back toward the doors with that nervous excited grin grooms get while waiting for their bride. Ready, sweetheart? My dad asked. The music began. Ready, I said, and meant it. As we stepped through the doors and began the long walk down the aisle, I kept my eyes locked on Michael's face, waiting for the moment he'd spot Jennifer. I wanted to see the exact second his world fell apart. We were halfway down the aisle when Michael's eyes found Jennifer. I watched his face transform in real time, the nervous groom's smile freezing, then cracking, then dissolving entirely into something between confusion and pure terror. His skin went ashen beneath his carefully applied concealer, and I saw his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. But he didn't run. Just like I predicted, he was trapped by the performance, by 78 pairs of eyes watching his every reaction. Instead, he forced his face back into a semblance of composure and turned his attention back to me, though I could see sweat beading at his hairline. My dad squeezed my arm. You okay, honey? You seem tense. I realized I'd been gripping his elbow tight enough to leave marks. Just nervous, I whispered, loosening my hold. As we reached the altar, Michael stepped forward to take my hand. His palm was clammy, and when I looked into his eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before, genuine fear. Not the controlled concern he'd shown when discussing work problems or family emergencies, but raw, desperate panic barely held in check. You look beautiful, he said, his voice slightly hoarse. The words came out automatically, like muscle memory, but his eyes kept darting past me toward the guests. Thank you, I replied, matching his forced smile. You look nervous. Just the normal wedding jitters, he said, but I caught him glancing at Jennifer again. She was sitting perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, watching us with the calm attention of someone waiting for a show to begin. The officiant, Pastor Williams from my childhood church, began the ceremony with his usual warmth. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Sarah Chan and Michael Davidson in holy matrimony. At the mention of Michael's fake name, I saw Jennifer's jaw clench slightly. She'd been living with David Morrison for 5 years, but the man at this altar was Michael Davidson, marketing consultant, successful businessman, loving fiancé. Even now, he was maintaining the lie. Pastor Williams launched into his standard speech about love, commitment, and the sacred bond of marriage. Under normal circumstances, I would have been focused on every word, treasuring this moment I dreamed about since I was a little girl. Instead, I found myself studying Michael's micro-expressions, cataloging every bead of sweat, every nervous glance. Marriage is built on a foundation of trust, Pastor Williams continued, and I almost laughed at the cosmic irony. It requires honesty, transparency, and the courage to be vulnerable with another person. Michael's grip on my hands tightened. Behind the pastor, I could see our wedding party, Rebecca looking concerned, the groomsmen looking bored, everyone blissfully unaware that they were extras in an elaborate revenge plot rather than witnesses to a celebration of love. Before we proceed with the vows, Pastor Williams said, "I'd like to ask if anyone here knows of any reason why Sarah and Michael should not be joined in marriage. If so, speak now, or forever hold your peace." This was it. The moment Jennifer and I had rehearsed. I turned slightly toward the guests, ostensibly to share this traditional moment with our families, but really to get a better view of Jennifer's face. She was already standing, her black dress making her look like a beautiful, terrible omen among the pastel spring wedding attire of the other guests. "I do," Jennifer said, her voice carrying clearly through the suddenly silent venue. "I have something to say." The collective intake of breath from 78 wedding guests created an almost physical pressure in the room. Michael's hands went rigid around mine, his fingers digging into my palms hard enough to leave marks. "I'm sorry," Pastor Williams said, clearly flustered. In 30 years of officiating weddings, he'd probably never had anyone actually object. "Could you please state your name and the nature of your objection?" Jennifer stepped into the aisle, and every head in the venue turned toward her like flowers following the sun. She looked directly at Michael, at David, with 5 years of marriage in her eyes. "My name is Jennifer Morrison," she said, her voice steady and clear. "And I object because the man you're trying to marry is already married. To me." The silence that followed Jennifer's words was so complete I could hear the air conditioning humming in the walls. 78 people sat frozen, processing what they'd just heard, while Michael's face cycled through expressions like a broken slot machine. Then the whispers started. "Did she say married? Who is that woman? Oh my God, Sarah." My mother's sharp intake of breath cut through the murmur. I turned to see her gripping my father's arm, her face a mask of confusion and dawning horror. Behind them, Rebecca had her hand over her mouth, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Michael finally found his voice. I don't know who this woman is." The lie came out strangled, unconvincing. "This is obviously some kind of mistake or mental health episode." Jennifer smiled, not the bitter expression I'd expected, but something almost pitying. She reached into her small black purse and pulled out a folder. "David Morrison," she said, using his real name like a weapon. "Born March 15, 1989 in Eugene, Oregon. Social Security number 547-89-2156. We were married on June 3, 2018 at Laurelhurst Park." She opened the folder and held up our marriage certificate. "Would you like me to keep going, or should I tell everyone about the mortgage we share on our house at 1247 Maple Street?" The color drained from Michael's face so completely he looked like he might faint. Pastor Williams was staring between us in complete bewilderment, his Bible hanging forgotten in his hands. "Sarah," Michael turned to me desperately, "you have to believe me. I've never seen this woman before in my life. She's obviously confused, or maybe someone put her up to this." "Stop." The word came out of my mouth with more force than I'd intended. The entire venue fell silent again, waiting for my response to this impossible situation. I looked at Michael, at David, this man I'd shared a bed with for 2 years, who'd held me when I cried about my grandmother's death, who'd helped me pick out paint colors for our imaginary future home. Even now, caught red-handed, he was still lying to my face with those same sincere brown eyes that had convinced me to trust him with my entire future. "I found the anniversary invitation in your jacket pocket on Tuesday," I said quietly. "The one Jennifer sent you last month for your 5th wedding anniversary." His mouth opened and closed wordlessly. "I've seen your laptop, David. I've read the emails to Marcus about cleaning out my bank accounts during our honeymoon. I know about Patterson Industries and how it doesn't exist." My voice was getting stronger with each revelation. "I know you work part-time at an auto parts store in Portland and that Jennifer has been covering your mortgage payments while you've been living rent-free in my apartment for 2 years." Behind me, I heard my father whisper Jesus Christ under his breath. Michael's shoulders sagged as the fight went out of him. For just a moment, his mask slipped completely and I saw something that might have been genuine remorse flash across his features. "Sarah, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" Jennifer's voice cut through his pleading. She walked closer to the altar, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor like a countdown timer. "Explain how you told me you were building a consulting business while you were actually building a second life. Explain how you've been stealing from both of us for over 2 years." She stopped directly in front of him, close enough that I could see her hands shaking with controlled rage. "Explain how you held my hand last month while I cried about another negative pregnancy test, knowing the whole time you were planning to abandon me in 3 weeks." That detail hit me like a physical blow. Jennifer had been trying to have his children while he was planning to disappear with my money. Michael looked between us desperately, trapped between his 2 lives with nowhere left to run. The venue had descended into chaos. Half the guests were on their phones, probably calling other family members or posting about this disaster on social media. My great-aunt Margaret was fanning herself with the ceremony program like she might faint, while my cousin Jake was openly recording everything on his iPhone. "David," Jennifer said, her voice carrying over the commotion, "I think it's time you told everyone the truth. All of it." But Michael, David, wasn't looking at her anymore. His eyes were fixed on something behind the crowd, near the venue's back entrance. I followed his gaze and felt my stomach drop. A man in a dark suit was standing by the doors, talking quietly into a phone. He looked official in that unmistakable way that screamed law enforcement. "Sarah," Rebecca appeared at my elbow, her voice urgent. "There are 2 police cars in the parking lot." "Did you?" "I called them this morning," Jennifer announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Fraud, identity theft, bigamy, turns out there are quite a few laws against what David's been doing." That's when Michael finally bolted. He pushed past Pastor Williams so hard the elderly man stumbled backward into the altar flowers. The carefully arranged white roses scattered across the floor as David ran down the center aisle, his polished wedding shoes slipping on the fallen petals. He almost made it to the side exit before 2 Sacramento PD officers intercepted him. The tackle happened right in front of the gift table, sending our crystal vases and silver picture frames crashing to the ground in a symphony of shattering glass. "David Morrison," one of the officers said, pulling him to his feet with his hands cuffed behind his back, "you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and violation of federal wire fraud statutes." Our wedding guests watched in stunned silence as the man they'd come to see me marry was read his Miranda rights 6 feet away from the table displaying our engagement photos. My mother appeared beside me, her face pale but her voice steady. Sweetheart, did you know this was going to happen? I looked at her, then at my father, whose expression had shifted from confusion to what looked suspiciously like pride. I found out on Tuesday. Jennifer and I have been planning this since Thursday. You've been planning this for 3 days and didn't tell us? Rebecca's voice pitched higher with each word. Sarah, what if he'd hurt you? What if he'd run before today? He couldn't run, I said, watching as David was escorted through the crowd of wedding guests. He needed access to my savings account first. The wedding was just his timeline for the theft. Jennifer had followed the arrest procession, speaking quietly with one of the officers. I caught fragments of their conversation, something about additional evidence, financial records, a pattern of behavior spanning multiple states. Multiple states? I asked when she returned to the altar area. Turns out we weren't his first victims, Jennifer said grimly. Detective Martinez says there are at least 2 other women in Nevada and Arizona who filed similar complaints in the past 5 years. David's been running this con for a long time. The weight of that revelation settled over me. This wasn't just about a man leading a double life, this was about a predator who'd systematically targeted and destroyed women across the western United States. I'd been his latest mark, not his first love gone wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Williams announced, his voice shaky but authoritative, I think we should probably conclude today's gathering. As our wedding guests began filing out, murmuring among themselves and casting sympathetic glances in my direction, I realized I was still holding my bouquet. White peonies and baby's breath, chosen 6 months ago when I thought I was planning the happiest day of my life. I looked at the scattered rose petals, the overturned chairs, the broken crystal glittering on the hardwood floor. Well, I said to Jennifer, that could have gone worse. She actually laughed, a real laugh, not the bitter sound I'd been expecting. You know what the worst part is? I still love him. Even after all this, part of me still loves the man I thought I married. I understood exactly what she meant. Despite everything, despite the humiliation and the lies and the stolen money, there was still a corner of my heart that ached for Michael Davidson, the version of David Morrison I'd fallen in love with. The man who brought me coffee every morning and remembered my mother's birthday and held me during thunderstorms didn't actually exist, but the feelings he'd created were real. Mrs. Chen? Mrs. Morrison? Detective Martinez approached us, a middle-aged Hispanic woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I'm going to need to get statements from both of you, but it can wait until Monday if you'd prefer. I imagine today has been overwhelming enough. Actually, I said, surprising myself, I'd rather get it over with. I don't want to spend the weekend thinking about it. Jennifer nodded. Same here. What do you need to know? Everything. Financial records, communication logs, timeline of the relationship, any suspicious behavior you might have overlooked at the time. Detective Martinez glanced around at the wedding debris. Is there somewhere private we can talk? Sandra, my wedding planner, materialized beside us like she'd been summoned. The bridal suite is available for as long as you need it. I'll make sure no one disturbs you. As we walked toward the back of the venue, I caught sight of my parents talking with Rebecca near the gift table. My father was carefully collecting the unbroken items while my mother held what looked like a check, probably the $5,000 gift from my grandparents that would now go toward therapy instead of our honeymoon fund. Sarah. My mom's voice carried across the room. Do you need us to stay? I shook my head. I'll call you later. Jennifer and I need to deal with the police stuff first. Jennifer, my father said, approaching us with that formal politeness he used when he was processing something difficult. I'm sorry you're going through this too. If there's anything Carol and I can do. Thank you, Mr. Chen. That's very kind. Jennifer's voice was steady, but I could see the exhaustion creeping in around her eyes. The adrenaline of confronting David was wearing off, leaving behind the reality of what came next. In the bridal suite, Detective Martinez spread our case file across the table where my makeup artist had arranged her brushes 3 hours earlier. The contrast was jarring, police reports and financial statements scattered next to my lipstick and mascara. First question, Detective Martinez said, pulling out a recording device. When did each of you first suspect something was wrong? Jennifer and I looked at each other. Tuesday, we said simultaneously, then shared a rueful smile. I found an anniversary invitation in his jacket, I continued. For David and Jennifer Morrison's 5th wedding anniversary. That was the first time I'd ever heard those names. And I got a Facebook message from Sarah asking if we needed to talk about David, Jennifer added. Along with a photo of him proposing to someone else. Detective Martinez made notes as we talked, occasionally asking for clarification or specific dates. The questioning went on for nearly 2 hours, covering everything from David's fake job history to his attempts to access our bank accounts. The federal prosecutor is going to want to talk to you both, she said finally. Wire fraud across state lines makes this a federal case, especially with the pattern we're seeing. David Morrison, his real name is actually David Chen, no relation to you, Mrs. Chen, has been running variations of this con since at least 2016. My blood ran cold. 6 years? How many women? At least 7 that we know of. You're both lucky you figured it out when you did. Detective Martinez pulled out another folder, this one thicker than the first. There's something else you both need to know. We've been tracking David Chen for 18 months as part of a larger investigation into organized romance fraud. My stomach dropped. Organized? David doesn't work alone. Remember that cousin Marcus you found in the emails? Marcus Chen runs a network of at least 12 men across 6 states, all running similar cons. They share resources, fake identities, banking information, even victim profiles. Jennifer went pale. Victim profiles? They target specific types of women. Professional, financially stable, typically between 25 and 35, often with family money or significant savings. Detective Martinez looked between us. Both of you fit the profile perfectly. This wasn't random, ladies. You were selected. The room felt like it was spinning. Everything I believed about meeting Michael at Jesse's party, our organic connection, the way he'd pursued me, none of it had been real. I'd been hunted. How did they know about my savings account? I asked. Social media forensics, credit checks, public records. Marcus Chen has contacts at 3 different credit agencies. They probably knew your net worth before David ever approached you. Jennifer was staring at her hands. The fertility treatments. He encouraged me to start them last year, said we should try for a baby. But the medications are expensive, and insurance only covers part of it. How much have you spent? Detective Martinez asked gently. $12,000 over 8 months. David insisted we pay cash because he said it would be easier to write off on taxes later. Jennifer's voice cracked. He was stealing my money to fund his fake life with Sarah. The implications hit me like a truck. Every dinner Michael had paid for, every small gift, every romantic gesture, it had all been funded by Jennifer's desperate attempts to have children with her husband. Mrs. Chen, what about the wedding expenses? Detective Martinez continued. I paid for most of it. The venue, catering, flowers, my dress. Michael's family supposedly couldn't contribute because of some financial difficulties. I felt sick. How much total? According to your records, approximately $31,000. Jennifer made a strangled sound. $31,000? David told me your family was paying for the wedding. He told me your side couldn't contribute because of medical expenses from your father's cancer treatment. We stared at each other in horrified realization. David had been playing us against each other even in his lies, using our compassion as a weapon. Detective Martinez closed the folder. There's one more thing. We executed a search warrant on David's storage unit in Stockton this morning. We found documents for at least 3 other identities, $47,000 in cash, and what appears to be engagement rings for 2 additional women. My hand flew to my throat, where my engagement ring had been hanging on a chain under my dress. Other women? Rebecca Martinez in Phoenix and Amanda Foster in Reno. Both filed fraud complaints in the past year, both described relationships identical to yours. Same story about consulting work, same timeline for moving in together, same requests for access to savings accounts. Jennifer stood abruptly, pacing to the window. 5 women. He was juggling 5 women simultaneously. At least 5 that we know of, Detective Martinez corrected. The investigation is ongoing. I thought about all the times Michael had traveled for work, all the canceled dates because of client emergencies, all the nights he'd claimed to be working late but came home smelling like different perfume. What happens now? I asked. David Chen is looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft, bigamy in multiple states, the charges are extensive. Detective Martinez gathered her files. You'll both be key witnesses in the federal case, which means this isn't over. The trial probably won't start for at least 8 months. As she left, Jennifer and I sat in silence in the destroyed bridal suite, still wearing our wedding day clothes, processing the scope of our shared nightmare. Sarah, Jennifer said finally, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. Okay. Did you ever, even for a second, suspect he might be married to someone else? I thought about it carefully. No. But I should have. The signs were all there, weren't they? Jennifer nodded slowly. I kept a list after we talked on Thursday. Every red flag I ignored over the past 2 years. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her notes. The way he never wanted to take photos together. How he always showered immediately when he came home from business trips. The fact that in 5 years of marriage, I never met a single coworker or client. He told me his coworkers were boring, I said. Said he preferred keeping work and personal life separate. Same excuse he gave me. Jennifer's laugh was hollow. God, we were so stupid. We weren't stupid. We were trusting normal people who had no reason to suspect we were dating a professional criminal. My phone buzzing interrupted us. A text from Rebecca, * media is calling. Channel 7 wants a statement about the wedding day arrest. Should I tell them to go to hell? *. Oh no. I showed Jennifer the message. I didn't think about reporters. It's too good a story, Jennifer said grimly. Bigamist arrested at his own wedding? This is going to be everywhere by tonight. She was right. Within an hour, both our phones were ringing nonstop. Sacramento Bee, Channel 10 News, even a producer from some true crime podcast wanting exclusive interviews. I turned off my phone after the 5th call from a journalist asking how I felt about being the other woman. I can't go home, I realized. My apartment is half his stuff. His clothes are in my closet, his coffee mug is probably still in the sink from yesterday morning. You can't stay there anyway, Jennifer said. The FBI is going to want to search it as part of the investigation. Evidence gathering. The practical reality of untangling 2 years of shared life was overwhelming. Our lease was in both names. We had a joint Netflix account, for God's sake. His electric toothbrush was sitting next to mine in the bathroom, like he was just going to come home tonight and brush his teeth before bed. What about your house? I asked. Same problem. Plus I have to figure out how to pay the mortgage without his income. Turns out the auto parts store job was real, Detective Martinez confirmed it, but he was only working 15 hours a week. The rest of our expenses were being covered by money he stole from you. The door opened and Sandra appeared with 2 cups of tea and a sympathetic expression. I've been coordinating with hotel security to keep the reporters out, but they're setting up in the parking lot. There's a service exit through the kitchen if you need to avoid them. Sandra, I'm so sorry about all this, I said. The damage to the venue, the disrupted ceremony. Honey, in 23 years of wedding planning, I've seen runaway grooms, family fistfights, and a bride who discovered her maid of honor was sleeping with her fiancé during the rehearsal dinner. But I've never seen someone orchestrate the arrest of a bigamist at their own altar. She smiled. Frankly, I'm impressed. After Sandra left, Jennifer and I sat drinking tea that neither of us wanted, watching the sun set through the bridal suite windows. It should have been our wedding night. In another timeline, I'd be dancing with my new husband right now while Jennifer sat at home in Portland, completely unaware that her marriage was a lie. Jennifer, I said suddenly, what made you trust me? When I messaged you on Facebook, you could have thought I was crazy. She was quiet for a long moment. The engagement photo you sent me. David was wearing the watch I gave him for our 3rd anniversary. It's engraved on the back with our wedding date. Her voice caught. He was wearing our anniversary gift while proposing to another woman. 3 months after the wedding that never was, I was sitting in FBI agent Rebecca Torres's office in downtown Sacramento, staring at a wall of photographs that made my skin crawl. Dozens of women's faces stared back at me, driver's license photos, social media pictures, surveillance shots. All of David Chen's victims, spanning 8 years and 12 states. We've identified 43 women so far, Agent Torres said, adding another photo to the board. The youngest was 22, oldest was 38. Average financial loss per victim was $47,000. I found my own face third row from the top, right between a blonde woman from Denver and a redhead from Austin. We all had the same trusting smiles, the same naive happiness that came from believing we'd found our person. 43, Jennifer repeated from the chair beside me. She'd driven down from Portland for this briefing, looking tired but determined. How is that even possible? David wasn't working alone, and he wasn't just running romance scams. Agent Torres pulled out a thick file. The Chin network was laundering money for drug cartels, running identity theft rings, and coordinating romance fraud across the western United States. What happened to you two was just one small part of a much larger operation. My stomach turned. I thought David was just a con man who'd gotten greedy. The reality was so much worse. Marcus Chen, David's cousin, has been arrested in Portland along with 9 other associates. We seized over $2.3 million in assets, but much of the stolen money has already been moved offshore. Agent Torres slid a document across the desk. Sarah, we've recovered about $18,000 of your wedding expenses from David's accounts. Jennifer, we found $31,000 that appears to be from your joint savings. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. That's everything. Our entire emergency fund, gone. The good news is that David is cooperating with federal prosecutors. He's providing information about the larger network in exchange for a reduced sentence. Agent Torres leaned back in her chair. The bad news is that means he'll probably serve 8 to 12 years instead of 20. 8 years? I felt sick. For destroying dozens of lives? The federal prosecutor believes his cooperation will help us dismantle the entire operation. 3 more arrests were made yesterday in Nevada based on information David provided. Agent Torres pulled up a new file on her computer. There's something else. David claims he was planning to leave both of you before the wedding. Says he'd fallen in love with victim number 44 and was going to disappear with her instead. The words hit me like a physical blow. Even as he was conning Jennifer and me, he'd been starting fresh with someone new. Who? Jennifer asked. Amanda Foster, 29, veterinarian in Reno. David had been seeing her for 4 months under the name Michael Chen, mixing his real first name with his fake surname. She'd already given him access to her savings account when we arrested him. I stared at Amanda's photo on the wall. Pretty brunette with kind eyes, probably thought she'd won the lottery when charming Michael Chen walked into her life. Amanda was supposed to meet him in Mexico on June 20th. David had convinced her to liquidate her 401k and bring $127,000 in cash for their new business venture in Cabo. Agent Torres shook her head. If you hadn't exposed him at the wedding, Amanda Foster would be sitting in a Mexican hotel room right now, wondering why her boyfriend never showed up. Jennifer reached over and squeezed my hand. We saved her. You saved all of them, Agent Torres confirmed. The 3 women David was planning to target next, the future victims we'll never know about. What you did took incredible courage. As we left the federal building, Jennifer and I walked past a small crowd of protesters holding signs reading "Justice for Romance Fraud Victims" and "Lock Up Love Scammers." I recognized 2 faces from Agent Torres' victim board. Sarah. Jennifer. A woman with short gray hair approached us. I'm Carol Martinez from Phoenix. David stole $52,000 from me in 2019. I just wanted to thank you for having the strength to fight back. Other women gathered around us, each sharing their story. David had been Robert Williams to Carol, Thomas Anderson to Maria, James Morrison to Stephanie. Same playbook every time, gradual relationship building, fake job requiring travel, requests for financial help disguised as shared future planning. He told me he needed money for his mother's cancer treatment, said a woman named Lisa. Showed me fake medical bills and everything. Mine was a business investment opportunity, added another. Said we'd be partners in a consulting firm. Standing there surrounded by David's victims, I realized something that had been bothering me for months. We'd all been chosen not just for our financial stability, but for our capacity for love, our willingness to trust, our desire to build something meaningful with another person. David Chen hadn't just stolen our money. He'd weaponized the best parts of who we were. 6 months after the arrest, I thought I was healing. I'd moved into a new apartment, started therapy, even gone on a few awkward coffee dates that Rebecca had set up. The FBI had returned most of my money, the media attention had finally died down, and I was sleeping through the night again. Then Jennifer called at 2:17 a.m., sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Sarah, you need to see the news. Channel 8 Portland. David, oh God, Sarah, there's more. I fumbled for my laptop, heart hammering as I pulled up the Portland News website. The headline made my blood freeze. Convicted romance scammer David Chen found dead in federal custody. Suicide note reveals additional victims. The article was sparse on details, but what it did say was devastating. David had been found in his cell at 11:43 p.m., apparently having taken his own life. He'd left behind a 17-page handwritten confession detailing victims the FBI hadn't discovered yet. 62 women total. Spanning 15 years. Over $3.8 million stolen. My phone rang again. Agent Torres. Sarah, I'm sorry you had to find out from the news. We were planning to contact you in the morning. Her voice was tight with exhaustion. David's confession is extensive. And there's something you need to know before the media gets hold of it. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. What? He wrote individual letters to several victims. You and Jennifer both received them. She paused. Sarah, I have to ask, are you somewhere safe tonight? Is there someone who can stay with you? The question terrified me more than any news headline could. Why? What did he say? I'd rather show you the letter in person tomorrow, but the general content is, it's an apology. And an explanation of why he chose each of you specifically. After Agent Torres hung up, I called Jennifer back. She was still crying, but her voice was steadier now. My letter is 12 pages long, she said. He wrote about our first date, our wedding day, the night I told him I wanted children. Sarah, he remembered everything. Every conversation, every small moment I thought was just ours. That makes it worse somehow. So much worse. Because reading it. God, I can almost believe he actually loved me. Which is insane, right? You can't love someone while you're systematically destroying their life. I stared out my apartment window at the Sacramento skyline, thinking about the Davidson I'd never really known. Jennifer, did Agent Torres tell you about the other victims? 29 women we'd never heard of. Some of them from as far back as 2007. Jennifer's voice broke again. Sarah, one of them was pregnant. She lost the baby from the stress when she discovered the truth about him. The weight of that information settled over me like a lead blanket. David's crimes weren't just financial, they were destroying entire life paths, entire futures that would never exist now. There's something else, Jennifer continued. Agent Torres said 3 of the women from his confession have already contacted the FBI since the news broke tonight. They want to testify even though he's gone, want their stories on record. Testify about what? He's dead. Marcus Chen's trial starts in 2 months. The prosecutor thinks David's confession could help convict the rest of the network. Jennifer took a shaky breath. Sarah, they want us to read David's letters aloud in court. His final confession about what they did to us. I closed my eyes, imagining David's familiar handwriting spelling out the details of how he'd selected me, studied me, systematically dismantled my ability to protect myself. Do you think you can do it? I asked. I don't know. But those other women deserve justice too. 2 years later, I stood at the podium in federal district court, holding David Chen's final letter in hands that no longer shook when I spoke his name. The courtroom was packed with victims, FBI agents, and journalists covering what had become the largest romance fraud case in U.S. history. Marcus Chen sat at the defendant's table, looking nothing like the computer expert who'd helped orchestrate our destruction. In his orange jumpsuit and shackles, he looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of 62 women's testimonies. Your Honor, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the silent courtroom. David Chen wrote this letter 3 days before he took his own life. He titled it, Why Sarah Chen? I'm going to read it in full. I unfolded the pages, noting David's careful handwriting, the way he'd crossed out certain words and rewritten them, like he was editing a love letter instead of a confession. Sarah, I chose you because you reminded me of my sister Elena, who died when I was 16. Same laugh, same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. I told myself that meant something, that maybe I could actually love you instead of just using you. Several jurors shifted uncomfortably. Behind me, I heard Jennifer's quiet intake of breath. She was testifying after me, reading her own 12-page letter. I watched you for 3 weeks before Jesse's party. I knew your coffee order at Starbucks, knew you worked late on Thursdays, knew you'd just gotten promoted. Marcus found your financial records, but I added the personal details myself. I wanted to understand you. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Janet Mills, had warned me this would be difficult. David's letters revealed the chilling extent of their surveillance, the psychological profiling that had made their cons so effective. The hardest part wasn't lying to you, it was remembering not to tell you the truth. When you cried about your grandmother's funeral, I wanted to comfort you with real stories about my own family. When you got excited about the wedding, part of me got excited too. I paused, looking directly at Marcus Chen. His lawyer had argued that he was just providing technical support, that he hadn't understood the emotional damage they were causing. David's letters proved otherwise. Marcus always said emotional attachment was dangerous, that we should keep the victims at a distance. But you made that impossible, Sarah. You loved so completely, so trustingly, that I started believing in the person I was pretending to be with you. In the gallery, I spotted 3 women from David's confession, victims who'd come forward after his death, women who'd thought they were alone in their shame until the news broke. One of them, Maria Santos, had lost her house. Another, Rachel Kim, had attempted suicide when she discovered the truth. They deserved to hear this. I was going to disappear after Mexico with Amanda Foster and the $127,000. But lying in my cell, I realized I don't want to be forgotten as Michael Davidson or Robert Williams or any of the other fake names. I want to be remembered as the man who loved you enough to tell you the truth, even if it's too late. The letter continued for 8 more pages, detailing exactly how the network operated, which banks they'd used, how they'd created fake identities. David had given the FBI everything in his final act, a roadmap to dismantling the entire operation. Sarah, I know you'll never forgive me. But please know that every morning I brought you coffee, every time I said I loved you, part of me meant it. That part was real, even if everything else was a lie. I folded the letter and looked up at Judge Patricia Morrison. Your Honor, David Chen stole my money, my trust, and 2 years of my life. But reading his confession helped me understand something important. We weren't just victims of fraud. We were victims of a systematic criminal enterprise that targeted our capacity for love. Marcus Chen was sentenced to 24 years in federal prison. The remaining network members received sentences ranging from 8 to 18 years. The FBI recovered over $4.2 million in assets, returning money to dozens of victims who'd never expected to see justice. After the sentencing, Jennifer and I walked out of the courthouse together, past the cameras and reporters shouting questions about how it felt to get closure. Sarah, Jennifer said as we reached the steps, I have something to tell you. I'm getting remarried next month. I stopped walking, staring at her in surprise. What? To who? She smiled, the first genuinely happy expression I'd seen from her since this whole nightmare began. His name is Tom. He's a teacher, completely boring, shows me his tax returns on the first date. She laughed. And I'm taking his name. I'm finally going to stop being Jennifer Morrison. Looking at her glowing face, I realized something had shifted for both of us. We'd started this journey as victims, but we were ending it as survivors who'd helped bring down a criminal network and protect future victims. Jennifer, I said, I think that's exactly what David Chen would have hated most, knowing we found happiness anyway.